Hey guys, it's Tarkin coming at you with another game of Minecraft. We're here in the hardcore world again, just hanging out, just doing normal stuff, you know, just gonna do our thing. First and most importantly, putting the music disc where it belongs. Hey Luke, how's it going? Nice to see you. Good afternoon. So I figured we'd just, you know, do something. I don't know. Something. It matters not. Because I have like this thing that I built over here, and I was thinking we could work on it. I think I got like some parts for it. We're just gonna drop this because this is exactly the same as putting stuff where it's supposed to be. It's indistinguishable from it. Because we got more to do here, right? We need to get all of this going on. So, well, you know, need strong. Oh, right, and we never finished this. We ran out of that. We need to go get some of that. All right. Yeah. Where's my trident? All right, time to brawl. Good news, I found out what to do. Said you went back to watch my big dwarf find it for nice. I was actually thinking about it, then I'm like, oh, I hope Lucas is here. I'll have to like mark it. But yeah, that was pretty. I was glad that I kept on playing, you know, a little bit in the campaign to get that very, very satisfying stuff. Man, I can't wait till we do another Chaos Dwarf campaign. Alright, so which are the ones that we need? I mean, we could get lots of them, but which were the ones that we needed? These are just prismarine. Yeah, just prismarine. Got it. Alright. And you know, there might actually be more of them over there. Maybe... No, there's no way that, like, Endermen would have stolen that many in a row. There's no way. I don't think they behave that way. I mean, they might. Oh, I don't have a guardian farm. Whenever I need the bricks, I just go out and grab them out of it and then beat them up while we're there, right? Because there's actually... Here, we'll fly above. I was about to go just swim. But this is equally... Because the one that we typically raid is just like right here, right? And then there's a couple more monuments just over like this away. And this one we've already cracked, you know, like a couple times. You can see we just drilled a hole in the top sort of stuff. But yeah, we mainly just like go in and then just like casually beat on them while we're mining things. You say they scare you, especially in hardcore. So here, I'll show you how it works here. Guardians are tricky. They are tricky. The key is to be in motion. So like, imagine we hadn't been here before. This one's gonna have doors and stuff. What you need is a lot of doors, because doors both provide you a place where you can breathe, and obviously you also need like movement speed and breath time underwater to do this, but. Just all you gotta do is stay in motion. If you swim fast, they can't even hit you. Because they are very slow. They don't like do body block damage, right? So, third person, very important too, because, you know, like, yeah, they might get a hit on you or something, but it's not much when you have, like, good armor. With good armor, it's essentially free. You're like, oh no, don't make me attack you guys, but yeah, they're a cinch. But normally you would just ignore them, right? So like my setup here, we'll just ignore these guys, because you just go straight in. If they have to rotate too much, then the damage doesn't happen. And then you can just walk in, the doors, bam, alright, you know, now we're good to go. They block line of sight in the doorway too, so you can just get a little breath. And it just, the charge up time is so long that it gives you, like, rather a lot of time to react, right? And all you have to do is remember where your doors are. and remember where your breath's at, because when you're going fast in these corridors, they just can't get the charge time. And you don't even have to stay that oriented, you just gotta have a door. Because not only are we fine here, but I don't think we've even, you know, we haven't taken any damage that we haven't immediately regenerated off, right? And we haven't taken much because we haven't had to eat. But of course we also do have like a punchy trident and the enchantments, you know, it's not so casual. Hey, Calby. But yeah, it's not so casual if you're doing, and of course, so like before I drilled a bunch of holes in this place, this was a safer proposition, right? But the third person is incredibly important because getting jumped when you don't know it, that's what's going to get you in a place like this. See, it's max difficulty, so it's, yeah, I don't know what the difference is, of course. But, you know, this is, hardcore is on hard. You know, it's, hardcore is, the default difficulty is hard, and, of course, death permanent. But they will also, like, line of sight block each other's shots. We're a little trapped there underneath. That's alright. Because the thing is, too, is if you just go, like, away from them, then you're fine. Because you walking at top speed, they can only hit you a maximum of, like, one time, and they usually won't even get you there if you move at all. Right? So you can just, like, zoom in, zoom out, and now, like, what is that, you know? You just, it's very casual. If you don't have Prot 16... Well, when you crack them, you get a lot of gold, right? And that's the real thing. You know, because fundamentally, dealing with the major guardians, it's not like that much of a trouble. Really, the tricky thing is finding where they are and getting a couple doors set up. I mean, they're more dangerous than these guys, but really it's just that they delay you from mining. But the internal gold thing, I mean, it's a lot of gold, right? I mean, it's every bit as much gold as you expect to find at, like, a bastion, which I would consider worth going to. You know, if you don't care about gold, then yeah. Also, the blocks are pretty. I like them because they're sort of, you know... Whenever I first went to them, I didn't even know that there were monsters, right? Because I played on Peaceful, but I was quite enamored of it. I actually... This would have been long before I streamed, but it would have been on one of my very first times out of the Nether, and I didn't know how the Nether travel worked. I was trying to run home. I had finally gotten enough to build another portal out, and I was just trying to get home. I didn't know coordinates, I was just following the compass, but I found one of these, and I was like, oh, I have to check it out. And then I totally died and lost, like, all the stuff that I had found in the Nether for a long time. You like raw gold because of the inherent scarcity? Nice, nice, yeah. And then in my Peaceful World, I like drained one of these monuments largely. Like the whole perimeter of it. And then down into one. And then I have like a village at the top of it. And that I did that before I even knew there were guardians inside. And then whenever I sort of, after I started playing hardcore, I sort of abandoned that dream. But there was like this huge thing going on there because we were doing archaeology there in the Peaceful World. I brought the villagers out and I built like a platform, and then they eventually fell in. I didn't push them, and then we built a thing down there, and there was like a coral reef sort of so far away from that place, and I was gonna build like a big like underwater glass sort of observatory for it, and it was going to be, this big long story of how it all happened. But I manually, got it done. I didn't know the torch trick with sand at the beginning, not for a while, so I would have to go home and home to the base to mend things up. Ah, right, yeah, because you only get it from the blocks. That is cool. I should stop burning mine up and only go to the Nether if we need it. But yeah, so even if you get like a little over your head, all you have to do is start running soon, and with Prot 16 and perfect armor, you know, you can only lose a couple of hearts there. But we didn't need a lot of Prismarine, and indeed, it might have been in this box. But I imagine that I wouldn't have wanted to leave it undone, and it would have been a materials question, but it's impossible to know after all. And like, here's this place, there's, you know, there's not a bed. There used to be at one point, and then I think I came in one day and took it out. But I made it myself, you can tell by the way it is. Dwarf that you are, you can't not have a hoard of gold somewhere. Yes, it's very sensible. Alright, we did not have Prismarine, and that makes that worthwhile. Alright, good stuff. Alright, we don't really have enough red sand. We could probably just go on a trip for some. Is the shovel in good shape? It's a little beat up. We can solve it first. Mend up the elytra too. So you're not a huge fan of the prismarine blocks of the hole of the sea lantern. I quite like them, especially underwater. I think they're nice, and like how I used them here as like a contrasting agent with sand. I think it shows up really well there. But I like the color. But this all, you know, like what I was doing here, which I like, was, you know, we made like a fake one, right? So we built that there, and then now we've got like, we put the sand here, and then we would put little bits of it here and there, you know, as if, yeah, there we go, getting the dolphin speed, you know, as if the sides of all of this form had been a larger one, and like that. A trident, once upon a time, in World 3.3.4. We went on like the longest trident quest. It spanned many hours. Where I knew tridents were in the game, but I would, you know, wax philosophical about whether or not they really existed. And here's where more box claiming forest thing. I would love that too. Cause it's like you can get oxidized copper, but it's, you know, it's on that lighter sort of side of things. Do I have a bunch of sand? Nope. Alright, let's just put this up. 4 raw cod? How? Oh, you know, it must have been the wind. We'll just put it here, which apparently is where we keep the fish. You know, if we found it already in the box that we checked one of the first times, that means it's a fine place for it to go, doesn't it? It's probably like you'll need this if you want to tame cats, and this is the box you'll definitely come to if you want to tame a cat again. You know, that sounds exactly like a thought I might have had. To bloom. Ah, yes, yes. Where's Garuda? For I much desire to speak with him. Hey, boss. He built an Irish pub a little while back. Needed some good green blocks, but ultimately just used dark oak. I do love dark oak. But yeah, you know, as a person who isn't that creative with the visual side of things at all, you know, I haven't really found a thing that I'm like, man, they won't let me do it in Minecraft yet. But I'm sure that if I built a lot of stuff, or really anything, that it would happen more often. Because there are lots of good shades of black, and I'm like, yes, for my houses, which either look like brick farmhouses, or like awesome evil villain layers, or good villain layers. I mean, why does a villain have to be evil anyway? You know, riddle me that. Maybe a villain could simply be a member of a reputable crime family and hang out with his cats and all of his books. Why can't that be, you know, how it goes? These are questions. Alright. Let's mend up. Do we have enough carrots? I mean, probably. Yes. Alright, Trademan's the elytra. Now we can just get the shovel mended up and then be on our way. Is it still a crime if you're the lawmaker? Technically, no. But we're not like, you know, like, we don't rule over these people. We are, like, merely a local hero, right? Who happens to be associated with a very reputable, very respected crime family. The Dark Oak crime family. They're not just international, they're also interdimensional. Canonically, every time we die in a hardcore world, Garuda goes and kills the Ender Dragon in a rage, and that's what, like, causes the Wheel of Reincarnation to turn again. So the only real crime is failure. Let's go... Yeah, let's... I've got like a bunch of rockets in the ender chest. I remember, I don't have to check. And even if we somehow ran out, we won't. They're in there, I remember. We're just gonna go zoom this way a bit and get a whole bunch of red sand. Maybe some other sand too, but probably just red sand. Maybe some terracotta stuff, you never know when you'll need some more. Might pop over to the archaeology thing. You know, just doing normal stuff. Such a nice world. You know, there's not very much wheat in it, but... Now I gotta get up to some abnormal things. Like, what do you want me to do? You want me to go plant wheat somewhere? Calby, you ask if I ever played Cuphead. I have not. I have seen my brother play it, but I didn't watch, like, the whole time, you know. I just watched him, one of our other friends, play years ago. But, I think they were playing on some console. It's not in the Steam library. Red sand, just like we wanted. I remembered. No, this place is great. This place is good. This place contains wonders and mysteries. Do you guys know? Do you guys know what you can find here? The coolest thing, I don't know if it's exactly here, or maybe it's over there. But anyway, so this is, for my money, like the prettiest that biomes in this game get. I love the sort of landscape here. But the other thing I love is open air lush caves that spawn very high up. So if you'll indulge me in this little journey over here, this is one of my favorite places in the world of Minecraft. I love everything about this, right? I love how tall this mountain is. I love that you get so many of the beautiful layers. And I love when you come over to this side, you have all the way up here at like 180 the beginnings of this gorgeous, gorgeous lush cave. And it goes on and on. Isn't it just the prettiest? Like, it's just my favorite kind of thing that I ever find. I love an open air lush cave. They're just so beautiful. And then here, I mean, like, just look at that. Just, it's so pretty. I can't stand it. I love it. And then further over here, you know, and then there's this big open eye into it there as well. It's just very beautiful. And then further over here, you know, you've got this chasm here that we're pointed toward, and then you've got like another eye into it here, and like it's just I think, you know, if I hadn't built my house already and I found this place, it would be up here above the clouds, and this is where we would hang our hats. This would be home, right? This is every bit as cool as anything I've ever found in Minecraft. I also love lush caves in general. The place where I was draining the ocean monument in my peaceful I was talking about, I originally was going over there for a whole different purpose, because I found it was like a jungle and there's this huge overhang, and then it cut back against, and so the ocean was there, and then this lush cave coming down. Super cool. And Luke, have I ever showed you the hole I dug for the first lush cave I ever found? In my peaceful world? Because I got so enamored of it. It was under an ocean, and I got into it from the nether by accident, basically. But I was so enamored of it that I was like, I'm gonna dig down. Yeah, we'll have to go there real quick once I do a little housekeeping. It won't take very long, you know. And then we'll get right back to the hardcore, you know. We're not gonna... Alright. It's... which way? This way. It's like, I know everything that's happened in this world, but I have to, like, do it in order in my head, right, to remember which direction we want to go. But, of course, the Field of 1,000 Cows, the peaceful world. This was back, you know, we found this before I'd seen a cherry tree. This was very, very long ago. And it was a big project. I was working on this before I switched to Java. Forever ago. And, you know, here's my field of vaporwave sheep. You know, very nice vaporwave sheep. Here's Ocean Research Station number 1, but we're not going on a huge tour. We're just going to the hole in the ocean's arms was the name of the video for it, which I loved. So anyway, I dug this with like a stone pick, right? Like with unenchanted stone picks with a couple of iron ones thrown in. And because I was like, I'm gonna dig down, I'm gonna fill in the ocean, I'm gonna dig down here, and then you're gonna be able to look down from the top, and it's gonna look so cool. It wasn't. It was a dumb idea. It didn't look good at all. But you know, but yeah, that was this is where we came down. and somewhere in there's like another portal. But anyway, this was my first big Minecraft project, and I found that geode, and I left it there for science. But yeah, and this was long before we flew, so we had like a staircase around the side, and we would periodically make new ones and all of that. But anyway, time to go back to hardcore. This is the first archaeology thing, since we're here. But we are going right back. This is my treehouse made of trees. I didn't think, oh, I'll just put the blocks on top of each other, so I physically grew the trees up to that height. And then we excavated and drained this archaeology thing. This is the one that I messed up, so we did a better job on the other one. But anyway, that's enough of the Peaceful World Tour. Back to hardcore, that's what's written on the wall. Alright, sand. Normal things. It's very safe to do that. Just aim down. And there is a wide tolerance. I wasn't worried. Alright, let us get sand. I think I have the yellow turban one also. I bought one of the packs, right? It was whatever like the cheaper DLC pack was, so I think it was the Furious Wild, and I think it had yellow turbans also. But I didn't purchase them individually, so it was there was the base one, and then there was that one, and then there was one with a whole bunch of other ones. And I was like, I'll buy the medium one. I figured, I wanna get the faction that has the elephants and the tigers. Next time I play, we're gonna get more of those tigers. We're gonna make it work. Or I'll get a mod, or I'll modify the game and make the tigers slightly better. Good enough to use. I want to believe. But I think I remember seeing that I could select the yellow turban guys. Are the bandits a DLC, or are they part of the base game? The green bandits, the Zheng clans, Jingxiong and whatever that fellow's name was. Yeah, that would be the one. Bandits are base game, and they got reworked then. Okay. Yeah, I remember I had, because Total War is always doing that thing where, you click a couple of buttons and it's like, okay, now you got this DLC. I'm like, you couldn't just give it to me? They're like, no, it was important to me that you click the buttons. If you aren't willing to inconvenience yourself, you can't play Warhammer French people. And I was like, well, I sure would like to. I'm like, well, I've already told you what you must do. And that's the story of how I got Total War Plus Extravaganza, or whatever it's called. Do I have arrows? No. 13 is like not having any. Which is fine, we're just not going to try to brawl with creepers on purpose or anything. This is plenty of red sand, probably more than we need, but not more than, we would want for the earth, so it's alright. And here, a magnificently large coral reef. This is one of, like I said, this is one of my most favorite places in the game, because not only is it that beautiful mountain and the lush caves up there, but right here at the base of it, with the ocean, a huge coral reef. It's quite large, I think. Because it goes on, all the way over there. It's probably a couple individual ones, but it spans here, and then, you think it's over, it's not over. It's just, it goes on and on and on, and For my money, it's the most beautiful place I've ever found in Minecraft was this world. Because I had the spawn mountain with all the cherry trees and this, like, shocking beauty here of this immense, this great coral reef, you know? And, I'm just glad that I played enough Minecraft Worlds to see one like this. You want coral blocks, but you don't want to mine a coral reef. You know, it does make me feel bad, but in an indistinct way where it's kind of over. And anyway, I just look at it as, like, thoughtfully transporting the coral to a new place. I just tried to wipe that block off of my screen. I just tried to wipe this shipwreck block off of my screen from far away. I was like, what's that? Anyway, that's how they get you. What's the angle we need to take? This one. You know, we could have grabbed some sand too, but this is fine. This is enough red sand, and it's easier to get sand. Sand comes a lot more easily than red sand. It is not a premium. We'll just fly in the air, doing normal stuff. Say, Sao got a huge rework with the last DLC they worked on. A lot to wrap my head around. Not recommend to aggressive mechanics. Fair enough. Oh, Luke, I'm afraid so. Bleaching is, I think, the term of art for it, but it's in incredibly bad shape. Very sad. But hey, at least I have one in Minecraft. Anyway, I should learn how these doors work. I got upset last time because I accidentally cracked it. Like, I remember... Well, you know, we won't be able to learn, though, because I broke it. That's right. That's why I got annoyed. Because I didn't have torches. It's all coming back to me now. Because there's like this thing, but because we need to get all the stuff that's not the mechanism out of the way. So that we can try to figure out how it works. Except I think I already broke a thing. Yeah, we already broke something. Anyway. And, you know. Nobody knows how it works, but it's provocative. We're just gonna take the pistons with us. And maybe we can figure it out somewhere else. 23 gold ingots. Okay. Yeah, I came here the other day and I was like, yeah, we'll try to work it out. And then, like, in trying to access it, I, like, broke a couple blocks. I'm like, well, now it's useless. But, you know, there's the tripwire and all. We got that. Panda! Hooray! Happiest playful panda rolling on their back. Wonderful! And of course, importantly, they're both right here. Yes, delicious. This is what it's all about, you know. The lever that does something powers a set of pistons that open a door. I thought it was like an interaction between the three and you had to like figure out how that happened. But it's just the one thing that operates three separate pistons. You know, they're just eating. That's this is why pandas have problems. Hooray! For unto us a panda is born. Look at this frowny little guy. Look at this frowny little guy. I think that's like the first panda we've got. There's still a ton more animals to breed. So you hear they've been spent up for the 6 billion year on panda conservation? Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it was near that. It's interesting how a symbol can gain power like that, because you know pandas hadn't always been, you know, associated with anything, you know, with the place they're from. They haven't always been, you know, famous. Like 300 years ago, they weren't famous, even internally, right? At least that's my understanding. But I don't want to sound negative. I'm glad that there are these efforts. It's just interesting to me how, like, a specific aspect of an animal or a plant or whatever, some sort of cultural basis or an aesthetic one, maybe they're cute or whatever, you know, and it's so much more, like, compelling to people. Like, I really like birds of prey. Raptors, I think they're very cool. There's this book I used to read all the time whenever I was a little kid, called My Side of the Mountain, where this kid like ran away from home and lived inside of a tree with his pet falcon. Very awesome stuff. And so like those are like the conservation causes that always hit me the most, you know, owls and eagles and hawks and falcons and stuff like that. That really hits me. But it's interesting to see, you know, what gets other people. I love bears, you know. Now, you know, I'm for them. I think there should be more bears. I don't care who hears me say it. I know it takes a lot of courage, but I'm for it. Alright, we don't need to come here. We need to place red sand over here. The whole point of this trip. So you'd rather like birds of prey or bees and pandas, because they're sort of lost causes. Yeah, and I think, you know, and that's another thing, though, too, to sort of piggyback on my earlier musing. I think people love lost causes, right? I know I do. Because like how potentially insulting to other people's motives do I want to be? I think there is something more romantic, and by which I mean like capital R romantic, like in the sense of the poets. There's something more romantic about supporting something that can't possibly come true. About dreaming for a world that couldn't happen. Because dreaming of something that could happen is, again, romantically, capital R, that's insufficient to the emotion that you feel about any loss at all. Which a poet will note that a person concerned with the loss of some animal or geographical figure is probably concerned with other sorts of loss as well. A psychologist would do the same thing, but a poet would belabor the point for a long time, and you know which one I am. We need some dirt. We could probably find it somewhere, but I'm just going to take some here. Now, why would you do that to this very nice island, you might ask? I'll forget I did it later, and it'll look like the island had always been this way. Oh, I don't have any space for the dirt. Well, we're gonna throw this repeater on the ground. Like, almost as if, like, the adherence to the... Oh, I've been blown up. The adherence to this dream, because it's impossible, it's more satisfying because it feels like holier. It's like the person can recognize the mistakes of the past and fight the good fight, you know, and not give up the struggle against all odds or whatever. And at the heart of every romantic feeling like that is, you know, a person's grappling with their place on the wheel of reincarnation, as I might artfully put it, you know. Who am I? Where did I come from? Whence do I go? And all of that, you know. Why and how and all of that. And it can feel very bleak and pointless, probably for a reason. But if you find something that's like... that feels as precious to you as yourself, it's often hard to articulate it that way because it requires a certain level of introspection that most people wouldn't be willing to engage in on the subject, right? You know, like, what is it about me that wants to fix things? That sort of stuff. But the same thing that wants it to be not like a bug, you know, it should be something whose loss would be as powerful as the loss of me, the person who's feeling these things, right? And I think, to address your question there, you know, what gives us the right, that sort of existential quandary in ourselves, that's I think where we derive the right from, why we claim it when we do. And that's why, you know, the aesthetics of what we try to save will always matter. Beautiful things will be more meaningful to people, not just because they're beautiful, but because I think to us they represent our desire to save ourselves from annihilation, which is foolish, you know. We all return. At the risk of getting overly philosophical, when you die in Minecraft Hardcore, all you have to do is start over. And that's what I always do. But when you're the Great Barrier Reef, it's not that simple. Or the orangutan, or the black rhino. Or the passenger pigeon. Tasmanian tiger. So much lost. There's a very good Mountain Goat song about this, which I've already talked about in this very series. But we're not gonna quote a different verse this time. I think we quoted the verse about the dodo bird when we talked about it that last time. Thank you for the good luck wishes, Shay, with a bunch of constants. You know, having sea lanterns would be classier than torches, wouldn't it? Hey, Minikman. Oh, we're getting real philosophical up in here. We're talking about, like, the aesthetics of conservation. We're talking about whether or not people care about beauty, you know, when it comes to, you know, what we save in the world. It's good stuff, you know. It's exactly what people assume they're going to get when they jump into a stream called Normal Things. Alright, I need more inventory space so that I can move things around a little bit. You'll do this by throwing the cobblestone in here and forgetting about it? I mean, no. By throwing the cobblestone in here until it's time to deal with it. Because honestly, that much sand is enough sand. We need more dirt. Do I really not have any spare dirt? Here we go. Oh, there's some red sand there. We'll just pretend that I just put it there. Like right there. Did an Enderman take that? I mean, maybe. If they literally took all those ones, I mean, now we know they're there, so we'll be able to tell if they take any more of them. We need more regular sand, don't we? Yeah. Leave a space because there'll be sand on that layer because it's prettier. Whatever. We'll fix it later. Or not. Say it might be about callous, but you look at it as sort of like a bit arrogant. Yeah, perhaps. But I would counter that sentiment by saying that we have already done so. That we have already chosen to shape the world with poison and flame, and like we are just like doing a big Saruman all over everything. So it makes sense to be like, hey, maybe we should quit doing a big Saruman all over everything. But it's too late, and we're all totally gonna keep on doing it. That's why I'm on no one's side. No one cares for the trees anymore. We need some normal sand. We need some normal sand, and we need some dirt. We don't have any normal sand. We've used all of it? We've used all of it. I mean, I guess so. We've got like a Zound of sea lanterns. We could use some more of them down there. We'll just come and get them if we need them. I guess we go get more sand. Also bring some more dirt over there. We'll need some dirt. We'll lay down the dirt first. That'll be productive. We'll throw the bamboo in there for, you know, whatever reasons. There's this book series I talk about every now and then, The Emberverse by S.M. Sterling. It's the one where the laws of physics change, and everybody's got to start riding around on horses and using spears and arrows and stuff because guns and explosives and, you know, like electricity doesn't work anymore. It's that series, but there's also some zany magic stuff going on. Clearly, with that description, there would be, but after a couple of books, someone's basically like, hey, we went over to the Isle of Nantucket where this all started, which, I mean, sure, it's got to be somewhere, right? But, you know, there are story reasons why it's the case. And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then they're like, no. And then they have this scene where they have, like, a cage with a bird inside of it covered up, like with a cloth, and then they reveal it, and it's a passenger pigeon. And these aren't like high art novels, right? Like, as a librarian guy, I'm not like, yeah, you know, the real reason for literature is this. I mean, I love them, but you know, I'm a snob. But that scene is as emotionally moving to me as anything I've ever read, because it was that grasping for a thing that can never be, for an expiation of sins that can never be forgiven, for the destruction of something that was once so numerous that it would have been considered an impossibility to even be able to think of destroying it, and yet we did. And yet we did. And then this guy, this absolute wizard, is just like, you know what? I'll just bring it back to life in my book. I think that'll be good. And he was right. It was. It totally worked. Good job. Bravo. No notes. Wish we could do that with mosquitoes, though. Ah, yes. Indeed. I have a joke I tell. That, like, you know, like how Bruce Almighty... if you recall the film, I'm like, it was a big hit, but, you know, for anyone watching who doesn't know the film, Bruce Almighty stars Jim Carrey, and the plot is that a god gives his powers to Jim Carrey because Jim Carrey thinks he can do it better, and then he discovers that it's not so easy. But my version of that is I just, like, get rid of all the wasps and all of the mosquitoes. I know wasps are good for the world, and mosquitoes are probably necessary too, but if you gave me a little bit of power, that's what I would do. I don't like either of them. I like bees. I've ever considered them my friend, but wasps... I get it. If I was a bug, I wouldn't like people either. But I have done nothing to them. Only hate them and daydream about being able to eliminate them entirely from the universe. But they're wasps. Everybody feels that way about them. They shouldn't hold that grudge against me. Once, I was walking home from college. I was walking up some stairs made out of concrete. It was very hot. It must have been 105 out or whatever, and I was almost home. I was walking up the stairs into my apartment, and a wasp stung me on the top of my foot. I was wearing flips, and it stung me on the top of my foot. And it didn't have to do that. I wasn't doing anything. It shouldn't have even been living there. And that's just one story about a wasp that I have for you. I don't like them. No one's demanding that I like wasps, and a good thing too. You know, it is worth noting that we do have nice bees in Minecraft, but no wasps. We don't need them here. You've heard it already, they're most necessary? Yeah, perhaps. I try to take the view that most of the time people don't know what they're doing even when they say they do. So when they're like, I bet I could get rid of all of these bugs and nothing would change. I'm like, yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe, but like, would it work though? Because the town I live in, they do like a, you know, like the city sprays for mosquitoes or whatever, but it's not that selective. And now the fireflies are mostly gone too. Which, although, like all proper Southerners, I hate mosquitoes. I don't know that I would want to sacrifice the fireflies too. Not like I get to choose, you know, they just drive the trucks around and fumigate the whole air everywhere. They're like, look, it's a war. Exactly. It won't burn to the ground if we let it. But we can definitely make stuff bad. You know, I don't... To return to the Great Barrier Reef where we begun, like, it was gonna be fine. It's us that did it. I believe that. But to quote the great American writer and one of my personal heroes, Kurt Vonnegut, we could have saved the world, but we were too doggone cheap. Did I put up all the red sand? Well, that was careless. We need some more regular sand, though. We're just going to put the dirt into one of these boxes that will now become a box of dirt. Very important distinction. It's different than the other kinds of boxes that can exist. We should make the... No, we'll just make this out bigger, too, because when we have more sand, we'll want more beach here, right? Right. Leeching happens because the water's periodically too hot. Yes, well, good luck for us to stop that then. There's this British sketch show that I like a lot. It was called That Mitchell and Webb Look. It was on the air ages ago. But there are a couple comedians that did sketches, but they have a new show now called I think it's Mitchell and Webb Are Not Helping. But they had a sketch where like an evil villain was there, and he had, you know, some world leaders in front of him or whatever, and he had like a lever, and he was like, you know, if you don't meet my demands, I'll pull this lever and destroy the whole world with my death ray. And they're like, oh no, what'll we do? And then he's like, yes, I will hit this and it will charge the death ray, and then, you know, you won't be able to stop it, and then in 56 years the world will be annihilated. And they're like, what? He's like, yeah, you know, it'll definitely be annihilated. There's no way to stop it once I pull this lever. Now my friends are like, well, you know, it's kind of a long time, you know, and then the sketch goes on from there. But I thought it was a funny metaphor, you know. You can't threaten people with the future. The present's hard enough. Exactly, they're like, well, 56 years, and they look around at each other, you can see them, like, doing the math in their head, they're like, huh, okay, you know, like, well, no, I mean, obviously it's a problem, and then, yeah, I really like that show. I actually didn't know that they were doing another one, because I'm not, like, a good fan of them. I like both of the comics involved. One of them more than the other. There's a few like British TV shows that I watch, like not like every week, but pretty regularly, and he's on a couple of those. But if you've ever seen the clip of the guys in fascist uniforms, like being like, "Are we the baddies?" and like pointing and like, "There's our caps have got skulls on them." That was their first show, and they had many other wonderful and hilarious sketches and some not funny ones, you know, too. David Mitchell, yeah, David Mitchell and Robert Webb are the two guys that run the show, and he's on like a lot of different panel shows. Mitchell is, and Webb to a lesser degree, but I quite like him. He's got, you know, a style that I appreciate. But there's this totally insane show called 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown. Just like a fusion between a comedy panel show and this game show they do called Countdown, where you do like math problems and like anagrams where you like try to, you know, like make the biggest word you can out of a selection of letters, you know. And then they do like comedian stuff in the background, and because the real Countdown's a show and the real 8 out of 10 Cats is a show, and they just like jammed them up once upon a time, and I really love that show. I think it's super funny. And what I do like what I do. I've seen probably, you know, like a few hundred episodes of it. I you know, sometimes I'll catch myself watching just a little bit too many of them in a row. Are those little puffs of smoke over there? Oh, it's the stars rising in the sky. I get it. We need sand. Yeah, the elytra will be fine. No, would I lie to you is, I think, a source of, like, very uproarious stories, but I'm more engaged with the game show premise of 8 out of 10 Cats. It's, I remember when one of my friends recommended it to me, and I'm like, this is a weird sequence of words where you describe this show, but I'm gonna watch it. But I watched all of their first sketch show, and I thought some of it was like some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen, and some of it was just like kind of funny. And some wasn't very funny at all, and that's okay too. They have one sketch in the show, actually, that I thought was uproariously funny, where they talk about how they need to write some sketches that aren't going to be funny to like fill in like the hit and miss format of the show. You know, like, I was thinking we could do, you know, hit, miss, hit, miss, miss, hit, and another hit. They're like, well, why do we have to keep writing misses? Like, well, you know, the people expect it. and I thought that was a funny commentary. We could just hit this beach. It's barely enough sand. I feel like we've already done this. Couldn't we find a proper desert even if we just went a little further? We could. We know how. I'm like, there's a desert right here. I know there is. So this is another one of those great places where we have like these jagged spires. They're just so beautiful. Like, look at this one. Look at how I could have built an evil villain. Like, it's already, look, it's, you could just build yourself a little hammock here. It's nice. And importantly, there is a lot of sand over here, and we're gonna take it. Seen all of the new bushes? I don't think so. The camel. Oh, the firefly bush, yes. I actually was very excited for them, and then I've got a bunch on one of the floating islands. They make a slight buzzing sound, and I can't abide it. Fireflies in real life do not sound like that. You would have to get so many of them together. Just so many. And it's not in the same setting as like other generic mobs. It's like somewhere else. Because I've got like, you know, friendly mobs off. And it's on, you know, maybe it's an ambient environment thing, but it's not like individualized. So I just, because when I got it, I was like, oh, that's so cool. We're going to go find them. We're gonna put some by the house. I love fireflies. And then they made a bad sound, so. Yeah, but we want ambient environment for, like, what, I'm gonna, like, turn off my sound that's gonna make the water happen? No way, that's, like, the best. Plenty of sand. You can never have enough of it, because if you're me, you will repeatedly be like, oh, that's a lot of sand, we'll make glass, and then break it without silk touch later. Normal stuff. And the spore blossom keeps winning. It's so wonderful, and it doesn't make any bad sounds. The problem with the Spore Blossom, of course, is that it is not farmable. At least I don't think it is. I believe you have to go and find it. There's a finite and non-expanding number of them in the world. You can't bone meal them, I don't think. Maybe you can, and I just haven't been creative enough. Maybe it'll generate on the underside of moss blocks. I don't think so, though. In my experience, bone meal only affects blocks either individually or on top. Wandering traders. Oh, I see. So I need to find one that had it and then convince them to stay. It's easy to sound like a bad person when you're playing Minecraft, but I'm a hero. I'm like why this world was made. They love me here, okay? But speaking of things I love, I was thinking about another project, not sand related. I was like, I need to build Iron Forge. I need to build Iron Forge here. And not like the whole thing probably, just like the gate of Iron Forge. And then, you know, like the central section with the bank and, you know, the auction house run. And then probably just right up into the corner where the Great Forge is and stuff. And I think that would be... I mean, I know it would be awesome. I don't think I would do a good job at it. We could do it, like, on Spawn Mountain, too. And the Great Gate of Iron Forge would be just like, bam, right there, you know. You could walk right in. World of Warcraft dwarves are... They're not quite dwarfy enough. I don't know if that makes any sense, but if you've played WoW, then you probably know what I mean. Like, they're dwarves, but they're not very dwarfy. They don't have a book of grudges, right? Like, when you compare them to how obviously incredibly dwarfy Warhammer dwarves are, they pale in comparison, but that's almost unfair. Warhammer dwarves are really good at being dwarves. Exactly. That's why I was like, I'll build Iron Forge here, and that'll be cool, because the appearance of Iron Forge, the appearance of the Dwarven stuff is more, they're just, you know, it's like anything else. Everything in the Alliance is, you know, all, the gnomes are basically just people. They're just humans, you know, even the elves are basically just people. They're hardly elfy at all, like... In Warhammer world, you know, it matters. In Warcraft world, it's all, you know, because of course everybody has to be able to... I don't know. Everyone's got to be able to fit in. That's like a terrible way to say it. It's like they didn't want, like, the dwarf experience to exclude anyone's idea of how they could play the game, so they just made it generic. Which is a lot of all of WoW, you know, it's just like, what's the difference between the Alliance and the Horde? Literally nothing. It's not like Xbox and PlayStation, there's literally nothing. There used to be some mechanical differences, but fundamentally, I mean, they're all just like, you know, they're all the same. But whenever I was thinking about building stuff... Exactly. The concepts they didn't want them to be strong enough to feel like they were shoehorning you into the right way to play. What that ended up being is that every dwarf character felt like a human character. But I never played on a roleplay server, and maybe I would have had a great time. Because I played originally, to play with one of my friends at college who was playing, and I was like, wow, what's that? Because I had played, like, Warcraft 3, but not extensively. I didn't own it. I had played it at, like, my friend's house a bunch. And I had played Warcraft 2. I had Warcraft 2 on PC once upon a time. Back in the day. So I knew, like, the universe and stuff a little bit. But because I wanted to play with my friend, I was just playing on his server, and so I rolled on a PvP server because that's where he was playing, and not an RP server, because our RP was that was for Care Bears, that wasn't where you were getting your cool stuff going on. Why pretend to be a person? I'm like, I think it would be fun to pretend to be somebody I'm not actually. And they're like, yeah, it's fine. We're gonna play here. I'm like, all right. But the problem, wow, out here, just like catching the stray bullets of my lack of affection for it after all these years over and over. Like, sometimes it's like, if the game was fun, it would be so fun to like jump on a roleplay server and just pretend to be someone, just like stand out there and like, plant some wheat, tend some sheep, or whatever. I mean, not sheep, I hate sheep, but the figurative sheep, the dwarf bighorn sheep, they're different. I don't hate them. But how much would you have to force it to be cool? Shouldn't the game already be helping you along? So you're not usually a fan of PvP, especially where the game's time and money investment directly proportional to success rather than skill. Yeah, the older I get, the more that is how I feel about it too. And even where a game is skill-based rather than these other considerations, it's just like, how much do I want to dedicate to be good at something? I mean, maybe a lot. But if the point is to be better than other people at something, I am less willing to dedicate any of my focus to that. I don't. How to say this? I don't want to, like, discredit the goal to want to excel beyond others. But that's not a compelling goal to me. To improve beyond what I have done in a game, to understand things better, or to achieve, some time, or something that I hadn't done before, that'll always feel better to me than smoking some dude 50-0 in Halo because he thought he was good at the game and he didn't know who I was, like, because I wasn't world class in Halo, but I was I was in the class, if I met a stranger and I asked them what they were called in Halo and I didn't recognize their name, I knew with the certainty of fact that I could beat them. And I was never wrong. not once I got, like, good. You know, people didn't beat me and my friends. Unless, like, yeah, unless we'd heard of them. But that was, you know, that was long ago. That was before the internet era. So the selection was smaller, you know. The amount of people competing in Halo at a high level was much smaller. How good were we really? Probably not that good. Not like not better than tens of millions of people that were trying, you know, just better than everybody we met. Yeah. And the video game, an unworthy thing to devote so much to life to. Yes. And that is what I forgot to mention, but that's the real reason that I tried to move away from competitive gaming, and why I very rarely play anything that is like against another player at all, especially if it's like truly competitive. Like Dead by Daylight, you're sort of competing, but it's a different sort of dynamic. It's just that I want to get from video games what I think I'm supposed to. I want to treat them like an art form. I want to let them change my life and my time in the way that I want. And I don't think that I can get that if I am using the format of excelling at my experience in this art to defeat other people. It's why in WoW, like, even though I was good at PvP and got a lot of success at it, and I would win fights, blah, 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 but, like, the stuff that always meant the most to me was getting some friends together and grinding some dungeon, you know, 30 times a day, just 6 or 7 hours a day for days on end to get some rare drop. Like, that to me was what it was all about, was like the story of knowing, you know, that somebody was going to give up, and then I said, no, you're not going to give up. We're going to get that meaningless item. You and me, kid, we're going to go places, you know? And that's what I loved about WoW. But, oh no, not the horse, oh no! Well, the horse got cooked. The horse got cooked by the pigs. Alright, that's our cue to discard some of these pigs. Mend up this elytra here. You know, we've got more of those horses, or else we wouldn't have left that one in here for so long. I'm like, the elytra's mending, otherwise we wouldn't be hearing so many of those. Anyway. Yeah, because I love so many different kinds of games, you know. I would say my favorite genre of game is the JRPG. You know, that's what my favorite game is, Final Fantasy VI. By long-standing tradition, that's what I always say, and it's even true, right? You know, and they're games that fundamentally are based on what I would call, like, a boring gameplay loop. Especially the early ones, all the ones that are very dear to me are just, you know, very turn-based, very simple, but the way they tell the story and they allow you to interact with it, and like the fusion of choice and character, even, and sometimes especially when what you can do is restricted, is just so interesting to me, because I love stories. And in a lot of ways, you know, like a JRPG is as close as you get to a traditional literary experience in gaming, and I've always gravitated to that ever since I was, you know, a small child. But before I learned to read, I wanted to play Final Fantasy, right? Total War and other strategy games where you consider sandbox game, and I often think of them that way too. Like, and the thing is too is they're very story based. Like the campaigns that I get the most engaged in like Civ or Total War or even like Age of Empires were always ones where, you know, I got emotionally invested with my character in the game, you know. What are we doing? What's been done to us, you know? I can't believe those Persians sent over all those war elephants, you know. When my samurai hear this, they're really going to be mad, you know, that kind of thing. And then I realized samurai don't match up well against war elephants. You know, young me, I had dreams. I was like, I'll run up and stab them with the swords, it'll go great. It didn't. Good old Doug. Let's say hello to the Mooshes. Mooshes Smalls! And Baby Moosh together, of course, they are. The singer, songwriting, rapping duo. They just hang out over here because they, you know, they like their own space. RPG, especially the really long ones. You got the gameplay loop, yeah. And that's the thing, like, and that's why I stopped playing WoW. Because I realized, wow, this isn't fun. Because unlike in like a JRPG, where even if you grind like a while, and like say you know, any of the Final Fantasy games, you know, I'm in FF10, I'm grinding my sphere grid, you know, hour and a half. After that, you're like, oh, okay. That's enough of that. Let's go do something else. I have, in World of Warcraft, killed the same boars for hours. I have killed the same crabs on the same beach at Westfall for days of my life. Not even trying to get something, just leveling up. I have picked the same flowers. I've picked thousands of flowers in World of Warcraft, and all you do is run around and click on them. And then one day I was just like, man, this isn't good enough. You know, like, this is not doing for me what I want a game to do. I want a game to be better than just being good at it, you know? I like being good at games. And sometimes it's even a goal to improve, you know, like with my Celeste running, I'm always happy to, you know, get a run. You don't speed run unless you're trying to, you know, see what you can do, of course. But it's actually kind of hard putting down WoW. Because I was good at it, and I had a lot of friends that I played with, and both real-life friends and people that I had known through playing WoW, and still keep in touch and all, but it's you know, it's different when you don't play the obsessive hobby that brought you together. You've got too much rotten flesh. It could happen to anyone. Is there a box that's supposed to have sand? Yeah, we'll call it this one. You say, is it so much to ask that a game be engaging and entertaining? Exactly. And that is why I, you know, I like to preach the praises of Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, where they get so close to nailing it, because Shin Megami Tensei is like crunchier, but the story isn't there, and then Persona, the story tends to be more engaging, but the combat, like, when you go from like Persona 4 or 5 and then back to like my favorite game, Final Fantasy 6, you're like, wow, this is boring, you know, like, what's even going on here? But, you know, it's still got the charm. Because, and this is important, like, what we love is not dependent on its quality. Often, you know, because of the way that discussions about, like, the things that matter to us are framed in conversation. It's like people, you know, feel the need to defend, you know, whatever feelings they might have about some work of art or whatever, you know. Oh, I can't believe you listen to Rob Zombie songs that don't appear in the game Twisted Metal 2 or 3. You know, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't. I just thought it would be funny to say that. But when you love a game, it's not really about the game anymore, right? It's like loving a song. Or person. You know, it's as the quote that I'm always quoting goes, like, love is a striking example of how little reality means to us. But, I mean, FF6 is a brilliant game, it's wonderful. But is it fundamentally interesting in a way that I think an RPG should be? Not anymore, because the standards have shifted, but that's the thing too, you know, it's like, is it even feasible that Persona could have existed in its current form without the influence of the boring JRPGs? Not that Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6 are boring, or Chrono Trigger, or even 7, 8, and 9, or 10, which were all great games. But in a mechanical way, they're not nearly as interesting as like a press turn system that you get in Persona or SMT. But anyway, it's getting to be that time again. It's midnight 20, and well, I invite you all to sit, stand, or kneel for the playing of the national anthem. Or, of course, you can dance. Pick Step by Lena Raine. Lucas having a party. A seed for Garuda. Where's the boss? Skulls on the walls. Wonderful things. But, you know, on that note, you know, what's engaging or entertaining about Minecraft? The game does engage, and it does entertain, but it provides you, essentially, the total freedom to choose how you want to get there. Which is the other way that you can do a game design, right? Radical freedom and letting a person create their own stories, or a radical tunneling of possibilities such that the story you tell is predictable, and instead what you're artistically interacting with is a person's perception of that crafted story. But that's why a sandbox game is much more replayable. Because I'll get all emotional. Garuda fell in through the roof of my house that I was making on hardcore video number 6, House of Dirt. And that's how I met Garuda. And he's my best friend. He's the boss of the crime family. Without Garuda, I might not be playing hardcore, but I know that no matter what happens, even if we die, all I have to do is load up another world. And as night descends on the world, I'll see what appears to be a chicken in some danger. Maybe there'll be a zombie nearby or something. And when I look at him, I'll see that it's Garuda. And I'll know that we're back again. I'll tell him that I'll keep him safe. And then it'll be like nothing ever happened. And that is something that they could not have anticipated when they put a chicken into the game. And as someone who always wants to make my own stories, you know, there's a story behind every single one of the pets in here. You know, Luca, you'll hear me joke about storms and stuff. He's named for Luca Brasi from The Godfather. But, you know, like, Luca's a bird that like hung out outside of our house in World 334. He just like sat there for ages because we had like we tamed him like for an achievement or whatever, and we wanted to look at him through a spyglass. So we just like left him outside for ages, and then he joined up. And the mooshes, like we built a whole canal to bring him back here. Thousands of blocks I built that canal to bring the mooshes here. And a couple of times they didn't make it because I didn't make the canal right. And then I made it bigger, and all of that emerges just from the love of the game. Just from coming into it and saying, hey, here's the world, here's what I'm gonna make of it, here's the story that I'm gonna find. Because no matter how many times I play Final Fantasy VI, it's always gonna go the same way. A couple differences. It's always gonna go the same way. And there's a beauty in that, in knowing that every time you read Notes from Underground or the Brothers Karamazov, that it's always going to go the same at the end. But not knowing can be a very beautiful thing too. When you load into Minecraft, and you never know exactly what you're gonna get, because as long as it's not like a circle, you can find it. And I think that's very fun. It keeps me coming back. And maybe one of these days there'll be another weird lightning bolt and my field of, pigs will turn into something, or I'll get like emotionally attached to an iron golem, The world's big and full of possibilities, but here's another seed for Garuda. Look at Marcus on the wall. Give him a little nod. A good little time. Just doing normal things, putting some sand down, having a time. So you like to make the Zelda vs. Mario comparison for sandbox versus linear gameplay loose? Yep, a good comparison. And one of these days I need to play Breath of the Wild again. I'm in a much better mental state than when I played it the first time around, and I think I would have a lot of fun. I do own it, but yes, we should write something in Wildflowers. But what we could write, like Carthago delenda est, one of those things. All my homies want to destroy Carthage. As far back as I can remember, I wanted to destroy Carthage. Anyway, enough of that, guys. Not really. You're gonna hear more of that. But that's all I've got for you right now. It's midnight 30, and it's time for me to get out of here. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Really hope you've enjoyed. If you're watching in the future, I hope the weather's nice. Thanks for stopping in. Good night, everybody. Good night, Luke. Good night, Ketsui. Good night, Minikman and Calby. Thanks for hanging around and listening to my musings about the world, Can't get enough of that. Can't get enough of me just spouting off whatever's on my mind at whatever moment. That's what it's all about, That's what I can promise you here. But yeah, it's work tomorrow again, and then we'll be on my weekend coming up on Wednesday and stuff. Hades 2 on Thursday. We're gonna be playing that probably like 10 hours, maybe 12 then. So, but of course we'll be around tomorrow and the next day. Just I'm not sure what I'll play then, but perhaps I'll see you there. And if not, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the time on the internet and stuff. And that's all I've got for you right now. So good night, guys.